Today, Chuck is going to present. He is the co-owner and CEO of Unique Venues, and he's going to talk about storytelling for your venue and how you can describe your venue's value proposition. So, Chuck, you can go ahead and get started.
Hi, everybody. So, this is exciting for me because I think, everybody has their positive attributes in the work that they do, and everybody has their shortcomings. And I am very aware that my shortcoming is staying on top of technology and understanding how to do it. And had you been on screen with Kelly and I just 5 minutes ago, you would have seen me absolutely panicking because I was like, what is happening? But that's my shortcoming. However, I think that one of my strengths is that I'm a natural storyteller. I love to listen to other people's stories and I love to tell stories, but not just for the sake of telling. For some reason, it's a natural thing that just happens to me, whether I'm selling or out with friends or having dinner with people, with my family, whatever it might be. There's always some element of storytelling that seems to happen. And I've noticed in my sales ever since I we decided to do this webinar and I started to really pay attention to storytelling and that I actually implemented a lot in what I say and how I present unique venues or event guru software or intern housing hub to potential clients. So hopefully you'll find this very helpful. The good news is you don't have to have an incredibly unique story to tell. For instance, one of my very, very favorite venues that I've ever seen or been to is called Ochre Hall. It's in Newport, Rhode Island. It is part of Salve Regina University, and it is if you've ever seen The Gilded Age on television, which is one of my favorite series, and I'm eagerly awaiting season three. Some of that show is actually filmed in Newport, and actually, Ochre Hall is one of the sites for filming this year. That's a story to tell as you're giving a tour to a potential client or you're talking to a potential client, is to share how this Ochre Hall was part of this incredible Gilded Age, and it was gifted to the university. And some of these rooms where you can have meetings, this happened and this happened. I remember one time I went and I stayed in Oxford University, and they told me that the room I was staying in was from the late 1200s, and which was both really interesting and a little creepy. But then when we went to a meeting space that they were showing me, they talked about how the King James version of the Bible was translated in that room. I mean, those are really cool, unique stories. But I come from the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. The campus was only built in 1966. Not a lot of historical facts to share, but I was always able to share stories. My stories were more about unique things they can do on the campus during a meeting, or a unique way that a client used the campus. And I tell the story of unique venues because I think how unique venues came to be and who unique venues is a really cool story to tell. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about unique venues. This is, we're going to start. And I want you to pay attention to what I say and how I say it. This is not scripted. I haven't even thought about this too much, but I talk about it a lot, so it's hopefully going to roll off my tongue. I find the way that Unique Venues was founded to be incredibly important to who we are today. Now, let me tell you the story. I'm not the founder of Unique Venues. I was one of the first clients of Unique Venues, but I had nothing to do with its founding. The actual founder of Unique Venues is Michelle Nichols, who I had the opportunity and privilege to work with from the year 2000 to 2018, when she retired and sold Unique Venues to myself and my husband, Neil. But I love the power behind the guts of how unique venues began because it took a lot of courage. So here's what happens. So Michelle was working as a sales manager for the Westin Hotel in downtown Denver, and she was invited to a meeting, and the meeting happened to be at the University of Denver. And she really was intrigued by this. She had no idea, what are we doing? This is in 1985, this is happening. And she's like, I'm going to the University of Denver. And she went in, and there were people from the hospitality industry from throughout the Metro Denver area who were there to talk about some cooperative marketing. And Michelle's checking out the space, thinks it's really cool. And finally, during the conversation about cooperative marketing, a representative from the University of Denver spoke up and said, I'm listening to everything you're all saying, but I don't get how my venue that you're all sitting in right now fits in. I don't think we could participate in this because I feel really disconnected from the rest of you. So Michelle went home, made this plan that one day she was going to start a directory of campus venues. She didn't know how she was going to do it. Again, it's 1985. Technology was not real advanced. The internet was something only the military was using and the government was using. People weren't using it on a daily basis like we do now. So that wasn't in her mind's eye. And I have to tell you this little kind of personal side story about Michelle. Michelle and Jerry, like so many people, smoked cigarettes in the mid 80s. And her mother-in-law was just so upset that both her and Jerry smoked cigarettes. So one day, her mother-in-law said to her and her husband, Jerry, make a deal with you. If you each quit smoking and you don't smoke for 6 months, I'm going to give you each $2,000. So Michelle and Jerry sat down, talked. They decided they were both going to try this and quit smoking. They both quit smoking, actually forever from that point on. And in 6 months, they had two $2,000 checks. And that is how she started the first guide to meeting on campus. She sat behind a little Apple Cube, gathered data, started building data, putting together the first directory. And a year later, it was mailed out to about 10,000 meeting planners in the United States. But the story of unique venues continues because we used to be, we always say we're the OG, we used to be the only ones out there who had a directory of venues that weren't hotels. And then we actually were able to acquire the term, trademark term in both US and Canada of unique venues. Why? Because nobody even used that term in the early 90s when we acquired it. Through the years, we've remained really true to our mission. One, we remained small. We could have been bought out many times, but we remain small because we want to be able to be attentive to our clients and not just be a place that you advertise. We've always been a family-run business, but family takes on different um, characteristics. It's not necessarily only the people you're born to or with, but also the people you consider your family in your heart. And Michelle and I were that way, and we're all like that. It does so happen that today, Unique Venues is also a biological family-owned business. And we've remained focused on one goal and one goal only, and that is we will not be satisfied until every one of our clients has a success story to tell about us. We're not a technology company that started an online directory. We're a group of people from the industry who saw a need to help people in the industry, and we developed it and had to learn and hire technology along the way. So we think we're a little bit different, unique in our own way. So that's the story of Unique Venues and who we are as a company. And I don't know how many people know that, but we're almost 40 years old. So I guess there's some longevity in our family. So, but today, now that I've told you my first story, today we're going to be talking about why storytelling matters in sales and marketing, the psychology behind all of it. And I have to tell you, this was really interesting to me. I learned some really cool biological things about our brain in doing some research about this. Um, what are the elements of a compelling story, and how do you apply those elements to sales and marketing, and what are some successful brand stories? And I'm going to give you some things that I'm going to want you to do or challenge you to do. Of course, I don't supervise any of you. Nobody reports to me, so I'll never know if you do it or not. But I'll be curious if you ever want to write to me and share anything with me, or you want to set up a meeting to tell me a little bit of a sales or marketing story. I'd love to hear it. So, why does storytelling matter? Well, first of all, it's about emotions. I don't know if anybody has ever studied Disney that much, but in Disney culture, when they teach sales and marketing, and just about any of their institutes, they always use a line over and over and over again, and that is emotions overtake rational all the time. Emotions in decision making are more important than the rational logic behind the decision. It creates connections. Stories build trust and rapport. So, what's the one thing? I don't know. Have you ever heard the statement, people do business with people? That couldn't be more true. I will tell you another little side story about unique venues. When we look, we have an incredibly high retention rate, and we're very proud of that. And we thank each and every one of you for having the trust in us. But the one thing that I notice is when we do lose a client, it's because someone we've worked with who knows us and who trusted us is gone. They leave. And then there's somebody new who comes in and they don't know us and they don't trust us, and everybody wants to be a hero when they take over a new job, and they want to find ways to cut. And I'm going to cut this and I'm going to do this. And people we don't know make a decision to end a relationship with us. And then we have to rebuild the relationship. Or we have to spend a lot of time rebuilding the relationship, which we enjoy, so that we do keep those new people. People like connections. That is who we are. So that you can talk about AI all you want, but the human connection will always be important. Third, it's all about recall. So if you notice, think about how children learn to read. They don't necessarily learn to read. That one of the biggest elements of learning to read is recall. So they're always asked, read this story and tell us what happened in the story. Answer these questions. They're tested on recall, and they are tested on recall because recall is so important in how we live our daily lives. And there is, I'll talk about this a little bit more, but stories are 22 times more memorable than facts alone. So people will lock away elements of a good story, then they will the facts. And we see that playing out every day in our life. Facts are less important anymore than what we hear, what we're told, what we observe, what we experience. So, recall is important. And the other one is it drives action. So, good stories get people to move. So, it gets people off that whole, I don't know, give me a call back in 3 months. I'm not sure if you're the right venue for my event or not. I'm going to look at a few other venues. A good storytelling, a good story that engages emotions, creates the connections, and helps people leave with this kind of indelible memory about who you are as a venue is more likely to drive somebody to a call to action to move forward with you. Kelly, any questions that you want to ask so far? Does anybody have anything?
No questions so far.
Okay, great. I told you about my technological shortcomings. The whole multitasking thing where I might have to look at a chat, there's not a chance I can do that. So I have to rely on Kelly, who will interrupt me and say, Chuck, there's something we have to talk about here. So let's talk a little bit about some proof points. And some of these I had heard before, but I did some research and I really dove into these a little bit more. So let's talk about the one that I just referred to in the last slide, and that was about stories are 22 times more memorable than just the facts. And so this was a study that was done by Stanford University. And it's not that they only remember the story. and don't remember the facts. They remember the facts because of the story, if that makes sense. So it's not like the story replaces the facts, it's that the facts are part of the story, infused into the story. So they're not only remembering the story, but they're remembering it wrapped in a really nice, soft package of something interesting that somehow, some way touched their emotions. And the other thing is that, and this is one of the things I had to look up, and I can't wait to share a little bit of this with you, is that storytelling just starts out this firing process in your brain that helps your information, that helps you to recall and remember information more. So it's based, instead of a bullet dot of facts, you've seen the brochures, you've seen the presentation where somebody just kind of starts telling you, we have 7 event spaces. The largest is 4,000 square feet and holds 250. They are not remembering that. But what they do remember is when you tell them, just recently, we had this really incredible event in here. Maybe it's something very notable or whatever. They transformed this entire room into a carnival. We had 250 people here, and they had this set up and they did this, and you're telling a story about an event. People will remember that you've got an event space that holds 250 people more than they will if you just say 4,000 square feet, 250 people. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this whole brain firing thing in a minute. 63% of consumers remember stories over data. So they like a brand's story over the facts it provides about its products. So I just told you all kinds of information about our brand story, who we are, how we came to be. You can go and look at our brand information and see our belief statements and how we operate internally every day and what drives us to do what we do, and we can share that with you. And you're going to look at that and you're going to remember that more than if I say every day we process over 100 qualified leads that go to X number of venues. And the percentage of those that are corporate leads are this percentage, and the percentage of those that are wedding leads are this, and the percentage that are this. So I just give you those bullet dots. Too much information is going to overtake that. But now that I've told you the story and I build upon that story, and I say to you, what's really interesting about unique venues is that we've always been able to capture the corporate marketplace. And that kind of sets us aside. There's so many companies out there that really focus on the wedding business. And that's a really saturated marketplace. We don't need to be Wedding Wire and The Knot and whatever else there is out there. We like to specialize in helping corporate and professional event planners find a great space for a couple reasons. The one, they're a more reliable client base. When they are looking for a venue, they're much more intentional about what they're doing. And the second thing is they tend to have a higher average budget. And I know, and we know that's really important to you. Less events making more money. That's a good thing. So I can keep building on my story, right? So, and if a brand tells a compelling story, 55% of people are more likely to buy in the future and 44% will share it. So I don't know, maybe you're inspired now the next time you're sitting around with your colleagues and say, did you ever know how Unique Venues got started? It's really cool. Michelle Nichols quit smoking to get money to build the company, and now look at it today, 40 years later, kind of thing. 92% of consumers want brands to tell a story. So 92%, 920 out of 1,000 consumers said that they prefer brands that share engaging, human-centered stories. I am going to throw out a couple that popped into my head just when I read this story. And I'm honestly going to tell you, I just did not give this any thought till just now. After 9/11, Budweiser. How many people remember the Budweiser commercials? If you don't remember the Budweiser commercials for after 9/11, let's talk about an amazing emotional connection to Budweiser. Google later on the Budweiser post 9/11 commercial. Okay. Um, this is kind of uh, Coca-Cola. We'll talk about them throughout today. Coca-Cola is really unbelievable. You know, when I was doing research, one of the stories they came up was the whole Share a Coke campaign that they had recently with the cans that had a name on it. And you can get somebody a Coke with their name and hand it out. And that's kind of a fun way that people make connections. And that's the one they talk about a lot. But I'll tell you, I'm older probably than most people on here. But I don't know how many people remember like to buy the World of Coke commercials. And, you know, that commercial came out at a time not so unlike today where people were very disconnected by politics and world happenings. And that whole brand message was about Coke could bring people together. And that really was an emotional thing in a way that the brand accentuated. We're about bringing people together, sharing a Coke. A Coke makes us is a commonality among us. You might be different than me, but we both love a Coke, don't we? So let me get you a Coke. Salespeople who use stories in their pitches saw up to a 30% increase in conversions compared to those who use data alone. That fact right there, which is a study from Harvard Business Review, and it was determined through A/B testing. And A/B testing basically means you take one approach with some customers, another approach with other customers, and you look to see which of those two methodologies is more productive or helps you to reach or attain the goals that you really want to reach and attain. This is amazing because I'd give anything to have a 30% increase in conversions. And I don't mean this in any kind of arrogant way, but I remember people have always said, Chuck, how come you're always so successful at selling? I think it's because I take the approach that I'm an educator. I don't think of it as selling. First of all, if I don't believe in something, I can't sell it. So of course I believed in the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown Conference Services when I sold it. Listen, when I worked at Tom McCann, I believed in Tom McCann shoes as a 16-year-old. I wore them and I felt great about selling them. You know, if I you have to believe in what you're selling because if you believe in it, then you're going to naturally be proud to tell the stories because you're not telling a lie. You're telling the truth. You're sharing your emotion, your passion, and your experience of the product. Um, so this is a really compelling reason right here to start to think about becoming a storyteller.
Hey Chuck, we have one question so far.
Sure. Okay.
Dana Tenenbaum asks, when you say the brand tells a compelling story, what are suggestions on how to separate the brand of rental space from the college's brand? We may use the college's brand because of our locations, but not for the same purposes that the college uses it for.
You know, I think so, Dana, I do want to say we had a webinar, I believe, on selling a brand within a brand,
Yes.
and that is recorded and in the resources. So, of course, I can't tell you all of those things. So I encourage you to go back to uniquevenues.com/resources to see that video. But again, I'll share my experience. When I worked at the University of Pittsburgh, okay, so I had all kinds of peel-aways I had to do, right? Because first and foremost, I was the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown, which was a regional campus, 60 miles east of Pittsburgh. So the first way I had to differentiate myself from the mothership brand, University of Pittsburgh, was to make sure they knew that we were a mountaintop campus, 60 miles away, not a city campus, not surrounded by restaurants, not surrounded by nightlife, but instead in a very introspective, beautiful mountaintop campus with 600 acres and 40 acres of hiking trails and just really great for a place where people needed to get away and actually retreat to, right? The second peel away I had to do was from the University of Pittsburgh brand as an institution of higher education to make sure people understood that we were a conference and event center owned and operated by the University of Pittsburgh. And yes, would the university have built this conference center if it didn't have the need to have professional and educational conferences for the internal campus? Absolutely not. But when we were selling to the external campus, how, how I felt I had a need to tell people a different story about who we were. That you weren't going to sit in tablet armchairs and you weren't going to have whiteboards and you weren't going to sleep in our case, you weren't going to sleep in old, dreary residence hall rooms and you weren't going to eat, you know, the cereal bar, the salad bar, and the chicken nuggets in the dining hall, but that you were going to be in very modern facilities, both all three for meeting, for sleeping, for dining. And so I had to dispel those myths, and so we used our brand identity to do that. It took a while. It took battle wounds. I have scars to this day on this, but I had to convince the university to think different about who we were and that who we were, the university shield with the learning lamp and the cathedral of learning and all of the academic symbolism that was on it was not necessarily what was going to sell the fact that we had a beautiful 600-acre retreat center on top of a mountain. And so we were able to develop a logo, we were able to develop taglines, we were able to develop our own approach to branding and marketing, even our own palette of colors that was different. And so, again, you may not be able to do that, but we were able to do that. So it does take having a plan, and nobody's going to buy your plan to peel away and tell your own brand story unless you can give them compelling reasons to do so. Right? So, anyway, I hope I answered just a little bit your question.
She did say thank you. That's
Oh,
all for now.
you're welcome. Okay. Emotionally engaging ads perform 2 times better. So again, we watched the ads, the whole Share a Coke ad. Listen, you watch Nike commercials, don't you? You know, the Nike commercials they're always the same. They're kind of like Disney movies, right? Disney movies are always the same. There's a character who has some kind of a problem. You know, Ariel wanted to be a human, right? That's all there was to it. There's always an obstacle in the way. Her father, there was no way she was going to be a human. Then there's always an evil character in every Disney movie. And so Ursula was the queen. There's always a hero in the movie who helps to make that person realize that they're strong enough to gain what it is they want, Prince Eric. And her little seagull friend, I think it was, or crab or whatever. You know, and then through a series of challenges, they make it through the challenges, and all of a sudden she was a human, right? I mean, people love emotionally driven stories, and they tend to have a cadence to them. And we'll talk about the cadence that's involved in storytelling in sales and marketing in just a moment. 80% of decision makers prefer stories. We talked about that. Now, here's what I learned about the brain. So, stories, facts, bullet dots engage just one part of the brain. It's a very narrow focus. The brain has a particular portion of the brain that focuses on the bullet dots. When somebody listens to a story, something called oxytocin is released. So, oxytocin is a hormone, a neurotransmitter that, as stories are being told, it increases. And this particular neurotransmitter is specifically targeting the part of your brain that builds trust and empathy. And so, stories, and probably the more emotive, the more connected somebody feels to the story, the more oxytocin is going to be released. And so that's why when you're telling a story in sales and marketing, it needs to somehow, some way be related to the person who is visiting and meeting with you and what it is that they need. That you have to make that connection. Um, and it also, there's another part of your brain that's triggered by stories, and they're called mirror neurons. And and I can totally relate to this. A mirror neuron is just simply a neuron that becomes more active when you tell a story about an experience, and the person listening to that story can not only imagine it, but can remember experiencing that, or can imagine experiencing that, or mirroring having um, the same experience. And so it's always nice when you work at a place. I can always tell a mirror story about unique venues because before I worked for unique venues, I was a unique venues client. And the way I became so engaged with unique venues is back in the day, we had something called meetings up for grabs. It's now called the open RFP function that you have to log in to see. But back in the day, the meetings up for grabs came by fax. And when I heard that fax machine go off, I would run out of my office to see if it was a meeting up for grab. And I would immediately, I don't care if the president of the universities wanted to talk to me about the gala. At that minute, at that moment, I needed to look and say, how important is this piece of business? Is this a good piece of business? And if it is, I need to carve out a half hour right now to at least make an immediate response and write to these people and say, we're interested and I'm working on something for you and putting it together. And so when I talk to people about unique venues, I tell them how unique venues helped me to be successful. And I think people can see that, hey, I could do that too. If I started doing this, I could do that too. So it's the whole mirror neuron phenomenon. Any questions?
No, we're good.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the elements. And if I keep going like this, I have to watch the time because I have at 3 o'clock a really big sales call that got put on my calendar. I have to learn to put 15-minute buffers in. Goes back to that technology thing. Um, so the elements of a compelling story first, who's the hero? Who's Let's talk about who the hero is. Now, you we most often want the hero to be the customer. Sometimes the hero is the brand, sometimes the hero is a specific product within the brand, but there's always a hero. And the hero, let's say the hero is a client. Well, the client has a conflict or a challenge or a problem that they face. And the problem they may face is we our sales are down at the gate for some of our sporting events here at the stadium. And we've been asked, like other departments, to start to generate more revenue from other sources. Or, attendance is down at the museum. And in order to help to make up for that, we've been asked to increase our sales by 15%. I don't know how I'm going to do that. So this client, it needs a solution to this problem. So that leads you to, so you're thinking, you need to be able to think, you need to understand who you are as a product, what you can do to help, and be able to recall quickly how you can help them resolve that. You can help them find a solution. You need to know, okay, so if somebody said to me, I need to grow revenue 15% this year and I need to do it fast, I'm going to say to them, well, as much as I'd like to say having a profile on unique venues is the only thing you need, I am going to tell you that is not true. It will help you to achieve that, but it's not the only answer. You need to look at lots of different ways of marketing your venues. Unique Venues has solutions, but there might be solutions elsewhere that you might find. But some of the quickest ways to acquire business through us are email marketing campaigns. Another way is, it's important for you to know that that Google it has really changed the way that they reward venues, and they want to make more money. And so paid ads is where it's at right now. It used to just be organic. Now it's organic and a really strong paid ad campaign. We can do that for you. This is going to double the amount of leads. If you implement those two things than you normally would have gotten, and they're going to be really hyper focused on you. What's the emotional impact? Why should the audience care? Well, you want to explain to them, in all honesty, I can't guarantee you that unique venues and the products and solutions we offer are going to help you to achieve 15% growth. But what I can tell you is the solutions that I've provided are going to provide you more exposure and more direct leads than just having a profile online. That's an important component as well. But you are within our own marketing resources using a multi-level approach to gain the exposure and more leads. I really think that, you know us, we'll work hard for you. I can commit to that. And you also know that you can look at other resources as well to see if maybe there's another resource out there who can also help you. So, and so talking about that, we want to help you achieve that. We're by your side. That's one thing I can always tell you. I don't think anybody, and I can tell them, nobody on our team has ever said, I can't help you, or I won't help you, or I'm not going to call you back, or you can't pick my brain, or I can't set up a half-hour meeting with you just to give you some advice. We've never done that. That's who we are. We want to help you because we really want you to be successful because of us. And that goes back to our brand promise. Okay. Storytelling frameworks, there's a couple different ones. So we just talked about the hero's journey. We just talked about how, I'm going to skip ahead to this, but how, I'll give you another example. So Event Guru software, one of the things that people come to us about for help, and I don't know if you know this, but Unique Venues acquired Event Guru software in January 1 of this year, 100%. And we're making some changes. And one of the things we know, and one of the reasons we're making changes and we can tell people, is because they need greater efficiency. So, we gathered some information, and, we have some customer success stories we tell. William and Hobart Smith Colleges has achieved 300% greater efficiency in the tasks that they do online through event management and registration services since they have implemented using Event Guru software and Registration Guru software. So the question I have for you is, what are the common problems that planners who come to your venue want to solve? What is it they need? Do they need, here's a common one I think I'm going to bet you hear, and I'd love to know some feedback from you if you indeed do hear this. But I would have to think that from time to time you hear people say, I am doing so many things right now. I am spinning so many plates. I didn't even used to do event planning, and it's like dropped on my lap. And I don't have a lot of time to spend on finding a venue. I need to know and understand and feel confident that you can help me. Or last year this happened, and we need to make sure that what happened last year doesn't happen again this year. We picked a venue. It wasn't a good venue because this happened. We can't risk that again. I need to know that that's not going to happen. Cost. Our budget is cut. We have always used a traditional, we used to go to the Intercontinental Hotel, and now we're in their big ballroom, and now we're looking at some alternative locations, and we've never stepped outside of our comfort zone of the Intercontinental. How can you convince them, as the person in marketing and sales, through customer success stories, through your brand story, through who you are as a product and how you've helped other people overcome those obstacles? Do you talk about, the fact that pricing is not necessarily a reflection of quality? And just to understand, a lot of you are nonprofit venues. So why your pricing is the way it is doesn't reflect the quality they can come to expect from you. Some of you are concert venues that host some of the biggest name groups in cities like Boston, where there are probably 30 choices of where somebody can hold a concert or an event, a live performance for 500 people. But you have stories that you can share about your success and why concert the concert companies are choosing your venue. So there's all kinds of ways you need to kind of be prepared and get to know. You have to kind of get to know your venue like you know yourself, right? So other ways you can do storytelling when it comes to marketing, because remember the old saying, marketing builds the weapons for sales to fight the fight. So we just talked about the salesperson, the person who's on the front line talking to a potential buyer. But now we're talking about marketing. These are the tools that they have to use to do that. So having either your marketing team or a marketing contractor, somebody you hire from outside to help you, do some content marketing. And content marketing is things like really good, compelling blogs and case studies, using social media to tell your story as well. One of my favorite, and I don't know if they still do this, but one of my favorite um, two campaigns that I've seen in content marketing. One was Albemarle County in Virginia, which is where the city of Charlottesville is, the University of Virginia is there. And their social media, and I'd love to know they still do this, and I should have looked before I did this, but they let people who visit Albemarle County tell the story on social media. So they encourage people, post your picture of your day in Albemarle County and tell us how it was and what you did. That is a way to use social media. Video marketing, again, like you think about the Nike ads, I mean, I'd love to hear from somebody here. What's an advertisement that you watch that really touches you? I'm going to give you mine. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is where I choose to give my money. And yes, we have experienced tragedy as a family, which is one of the reasons. But when I watch those commercials and I see the courage of those children and the struggles of those family and the support they receive, I believe it. I don't think there's anything salesy about it. I think those stories are real human interest stories. And so when I see those St. Jude's commercials, I watch them. I watch them. What is some kind of story or ad or video you see that elicits an emotion that calls you to act? And Kelly will share those.
I'll share mine, Chuck, while we're
Okay.
waiting for some responses. Um, there is this commercial that is based on the Johnny Cash song Ragged Old Flag. It's a very patriotic sort of commercial, and they redo it from year to year, and I always love watching that one. I love the patriotic ads.
Mhm. Why do you love you should tell people why you love the patriotic ads.
So I am in the Army National Guard and I've been in for 8 years. So I have a I have a tie to the military. So I just love seeing those sorts of ads and commercials and everything.
She's part of our family. She jumps from planes, just so you know. All right, there you go. She jumps from planes.
Um,
I'll share one.
yeah, Emily Martin said, I love the women in sports commercials.
Tell us why, Emily. What's it do? What does it elicit in you? Is Emily able to talk?
Yeah, let me see if I can promote her to be able to talk. For now, she said it brings more women to the forefront.
Okay, good. So I want you to think about and pay attention to what, sorry, my chair is wheeling away from the screen. Pay attention to what it is that really strikes you and pulls you in and makes you think you want to do something. So using mini stories to capture attention also. So these are just, there's some different case studies available that you can look up. But some of the really notable ones, we've talked about Share Coke, we've talked about Just Do It. Apple's all about think different. They're about being visionary. And Airbnb is all about building trust in staying in someone's home that is not yours. It's a very different experience and requires a very different level of trust to take the step to book a home that somebody has in somebody else's home, as opposed to staying in a hotel where 400 other people are doing it. And so the reviews and the stories and the way that the person who owns the home is able to present their Airbnb or VRBO story is really important. As you really start to put together a plan to or to kind of free yourself, so to speak, to be more comfortable in storytelling, here are some key elements that I really want you to take into consideration. First and foremost, really know your audience. Know what is important to them. What resonates with them? What are the challenges that they face? Here's one of the things I know. I know that 95% of the venues we serve at Unique Venues are not the premier or prime reason that the venue exists, that they exist for some auxiliary reason. Whether you're a concert venue, it's not to hold special private events, it's for concerts and performances. If you're a museum, main purpose isn't to have private events, it's to have some kind of knowledge or experience that is imparted as you experience the museum. If you're a college or university, it's about providing people with a formal education and a degree. If on and on and on. Some of the only venues might be conference centers or retreat centers who are purpose built for that very reason. So know your audience, know what resonates, keep it simple and relatable. Don't tell an overly complex story. Keep it short, to the point, and memorable. Show, don't just tell. Visuals, emotions, life examples. Share with people what you've seen experienced in your venue. Share with people what you've experienced with your venue. Share with people things you've experienced at other places that you make sure they don't experience at your venue. So, in any kind of, we have great visuals. I've got to get up for a minute. I keep a book of visuals right here by my side. Now, I use this to help me remember things that I need to tell people, but it also, I'll hold it up and I'll let them know I'm going to send you. Now I'll pull out our sales guy and I'm going to say I'm going to send you this document, and I'll hold it up and I'll say you'll see on page 2 there are pie charts that tell you all of the statistics that you're asking about. I want to make sure I get those in your hand, right? Um, Make it customer centric. It's about them. They're the hero. They're the hero, and we have to help the hero. Your job is to help the hero. And use different formats. So provide people with compelling proof points that are written, that are video, social media presentations. Capture some video. And what people really like is informal video, nothing that's like overly produced. But ask a client who says, this was the best event. It was incredible. Your team did an amazing job. The place looked great. The food was amazing. Say to them, hey, can I ask you a favor? can I ask you to step over here just behind with our logo behind you? And do you mind saying that? Can I take a video that I can share with people so that I have it? Do you mind if we do that? Or write into them and say, it was funny. We did this the other day. We wrote to some planners and said, hey, feel free to, it was for Valentine's Day, send us your love story of why you love using our venues. And the one guy wrote to us, and we actually rewarded him for it because he didn't share why he loves using our venue. He shared his, 60 year, 50-year love story with his wife and how they met. He told us everything. He laid it out there. So he told us a story. But so there's all different ways and formats that you can use to tell stories. So um, some key takeaways as we wind down: storytelling builds emotional connections. Great stories make you memorable. Uh, and it's storytelling's all kinds of things. It can touch every single part of the experience that a person has with your venue. So, for instance, telling people a story once they're there, you're not going to get any more money from them. You're not going to get, the sale is already done. They've already had the brand trust. But telling compelling stories about, oh yeah, isn't that a beautiful view? I'm going to tell you something about that. Right out this window the other week, we saw a bear walking across. It was really incredible. And they called in the Department of Natural Resources, or the Game Commission. I'm sorry, the local commission, and for the bear's safety, they tranquilized the bear and moved it to a safer area for the bear and for the people. But when you look out at this view, it's as natural as it gets. And telling people those stories, you can tell people stories about things not just for the purpose of gaining their business, but also for building the relationship, those connections. They'll remember that.
Hey Chuck, Lorna Brennan has her hand up. Lorna, I'm going to allow you to talk so you can ask a question if you have one.
You have to unmute, Lorna. Hello.
Lorna, do you have a question?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you don't? Oh, you just wanted to wave. You were waving. Okay. Okay. So as we wind down, I'm going to challenge you to do a couple things. I would love to see you apply storytelling in your next sales or marketing sales meeting or a marketing campaign. Just give it a go. So what does that require you to do? You have to know what's important to this particular person before you're going to meet with them, sending them an email and say, as I prepare for our meeting, tell me what at the end. I love to ask this question, by the way. Imagine that it's a year after your event is over, or a week after the event is over, and you go home and you sit back and you kick your feet back and recline and pour a glass of wine, and you think to yourself, having my event at such and such venue, it was perfect. There isn't anything I would change. It was flawless. What needs to happen for you to say that? And let them respond to you. And then you are prepared just from that one question to be able to have proof points and stories and connections already that you can make. Not to be made up, but that are already there. You just have to pull them out of all of your mental archives and file cabinets and like I have my notebook, have a notebook of all of your proof points and resources, and you're ready to go. So I challenge you to apply storytelling in your next sales meeting or marketing campaign. And I also want you to, we don't have time for you to share it right now, but I want you to think of a great brand story that really resonates with you. Not your own brand, but a brand story that really, really resonates with you. So, are there any questions before we close here
Chuck,
today?
One
Yeah.
final question here. How are you marketing your unique venue to corporations? An example is maybe to large corporations who hold an annual event for why they should host at your venue next year.
Okay, so we use a lot of different strategies. So we believe in, so what's really most important to us is connection. So what we do is we want planners to get to know us. So while we do send out email marketing campaigns, first of all, we'll send them to corporations about different cities. If you're planning an event here, here are some great venues to consider. You know, if you're planning your corporate gala here, here are some places to consider. We also do education. When planning a corporate event, here are 10 tips to consider when planning. We also do one of my favorite things is we send a riddle every month to all of our planners. Most of our planners are corporate planners, and we send a riddle about a venue. We actually write a riddle and we ask them. I wish I could pull one up. Can you pull one up real quick, Kelly? That you can. They love it. We get such a response. We give prizes to the top three. And then, of course, through our social media, we engage as well. So sometimes we go directly in with a very intentional ask. Here are venues, send us a lead. So we ask for what we want. Other ways, we make a connection and we tell people. Other ways, we share stories about things that happen at other venues. So we ask venues to tell us stories about big events that they've hosted that they'd like to share with planners. So, okay,
Um,
good.
yeah, Chuck, I have a venue riddle. Do you
Go
want
ahead.
me to show it?
Yeah, show it and then we'll say goodbye after this. So having fun with your clients is a really cool thing to do because people love to have fun. Our ultimate fun that Unique Venues used to have is we had a 70s theme one year in marketing, and every Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock we had client dance parties online, and everybody would join on Zoom and we'd play music, and people would dance in their office for 5 minutes and then would say goodbye and have a great weekend. So that was kind of a fun thing.
Chuck, can you stop sharing your
Yes,
screen?
I
Thank you.
can. Maybe we need to start to do
Um,
venues too.
Sorry, I don't think I can share my screen.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Tell us a little bit about the riddle last time. It was fun.
Um, so it's just a sort of a poem or a rhyme that we create. And this one says, in the heart of a city where the rivers flow, a hall stands majestic with a timeless glow. Where the skyline gleams and the lakes stretch wide, the venue invites you to step inside. Seven spaces await, both indoors and out. Every other occasion, there's no room for doubt. From orchestra's sweep to a speaker's bold voice, this stage has the power to make hearts rejoice. With acoustics so crisp, every sound comes alive. It's a place where both art and events can thrive. A concert of elegance, a gala so grand, found in a twin city where dreams take a stand. Accessible parking, great hotels close by, and a skyway to shopping. My oh my. So tell me the name, this place so refined. Travel to Minneapolis where your event will shine. And then the venue itself was,
Orchestra Hall. It was
yes.
Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis. So we send that out to thousands of planners and they all start guessing at what it is. And the first three to get it right get a prize. So we do all kinds of engagements. So and I feel really badly that I have to leave. It was really bad planning on my part to not be able to remain available after three. But my email is chuck@uniquevenues.com. This session has been recorded. You will, as a registered participant, receive a link to it. And it will also be on the uniquevenues.com/resources page of our website. We are so appreciative that you trust us to be your marketing resource. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.